and welcome back to the Masters Modern. I am your host, Alex Kessler, here with my co-host, Ben Bateman.
What up? What up? We're back. We're back from Christmas and Hanukkah and the holidays, and it's a new year. You guys are hearing this in 2023.
Stuff's coming out. Stuff came out. I don't think anything come out. I think like next week is Dominaria Mastered, but it is 2023 today. We're going to be talking about the whole, all of the product this year. All of the things that are coming out, and it's last episode we did was before Christmas. We talked about last year in review. This is a year in preview, part 2, part 1. I don't know. Ben, are you excited about what's coming out this year?
I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm more excited right now for Magic than I have been in a long time. I have been playing Limited. I've been playing a lot of Commander. I have been playing the Arena Cube. I've just been like playing Magic. I don't know if this ever happens to you, or maybe it never stopped happening to you, but I just want to like take out the binders and like stacks of cards every day, like sort stuff and organize stuff. And
sure.
Like, it's just fun for me right now. I get like excited about it. Like I'm, building decks on my phone again. It just, I don't know. I love Magic. And I think COVID, we talked about this a little bit on the year in review, but COVID definitely took the wind out of my sails a little bit in that regard. And so it's nice to have that back. And I'm just excited for all the new stuff that's going to come out this next year. We talked about the product fatigue. I do feel that a little bit, but I think there's some really, really cool sets upcoming. And I liked Brothers War so much. It makes me pretty optimistic for what's next.
Yeah. And like, even with the, like the product fatigue, like in reality, I don't know if I felt it. I felt overwhelmed by how much there was, but in some ways it didn't invigorate my interest in Magic. And to your point, I've been playing more Limited recently on Arena than in a long time. I think part of that is
which Arena?
What?
Oh, sorry. You finish, and then I want to know what format you've been playing.
Well, I was gonna say part of that is I like love Cube, Arena Cube at least. I like. This is kind of something I learned, and part of it was at Magic Summit. I got to do that Innistrad draft. I realized I was like kind of sick of like regular standard set draft formats is kind of what I realized what it is. Like prioritizing your 2/2 and your 3/1 and your curve, and you have a decent removal spell with some flyers, and like in general, my draft style or the archetype I normally will go for is also generally going to be on the grindier side. I'm a fan of removal spells and value and incremental creatures that outclass your other opponent's creatures, even though they're a little bit more expensive, whatever. And like that is such a grind in a basic Limited format versus I love formats where you can draft strategies on purpose and not and that's true in a lot of formats, but like go into cool ones. Like the Cube's awesome. The fact that you can do like all the graveyard stuff, the lands deck that you can play, the like blue-red spells deck is really cool. Even in Brothers War, I drafted a lot of Brothers War because it also feels like it feels a lot more graveyard plus artifact strategies that can kind of combine and separate is like a really fun place to play in. And it's a great format as well. And then you add the layers of like all of the old classic cards that you can open, makes it even that much more exciting.
Yeah, the I can't remember what name you came up with for them, but the like ancient treasures or whatever.
The artifacts, yeah. Oh, I guess the
sheet. That makes Brothers War Limited really fun. Not because you're hoping to open the nuts expensive card, but because like Sigil of Distinction is fun to play with, or because I've played with a lot of those vintage art. Like Precursor Golem is sweet. There's like a lot of cool cards. You can open a Wormcoil Engine. That's really fun. So I've loved Brothers War. What have you found in your Brothers War drafts? Just only because it's the first Limited set I've drafted in a long time. What have you found to be your favorite color combo?
White green.
Okay, yeah, green for me. Green is very clearly the best color.
Yeah,
I at first didn't like see it, and then the more I played it, the more I was like, oh, green and anything I can pretty much win with, because Giant Growth is incredible in this format.
Green also has like the self-mill strategies in it that like adjacently just like work well with all of the unearth effects, and your things are bigger, and you have that white green creature that lets you put a +1/+1 counter on things that really like is really powerful. Yeah, it's I was really impressed with white green. I tried a few of the other colors that just like got most of them I didn't do super well. I also like blue green, but yeah, once again green base.
Yeah, blue green's really good. The tempo. There's like green has like the 3/2 that makes a Power Stone token is really 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 good.
Mm-hmm.
The 4/5 for 5 that if you have 3 creatures in the graveyard, you draw a card when it attacks. There's like green's just really good. Oh, you know what the best green common I think is, or at least maybe the most underrated, is the 2/2 for 2 that can't be blocked by artifact creatures that you
Sure.
can make. You can put 2 counters on for 7. Anyway, it's been a very fun format, and I do think one really interesting thing, and this will like kind of kick off a little bit of our thoughts maybe for this next year. They started doing the first set. I think they did the additional sheet was the time shifted sheet in Time Spiral. Is that correct? That was the first time they did that, I think. I'm trying to think if there was a set before Time Spiral. None of those like
I
Kamigawa
think
or
that's right.
Ravnica sets.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So that was the first time they pulled a move like that, where you would have a weird card in every pack that was not part of the main set and was really cool and could kind of change the feel. And it's extremely popular. Obviously, people love Time Spiral. It's one of the most popular sets of all time. So it's interesting that idea then became this collectible sort of a thing, right? That then eventually became like, masterpieces and all that, but those are different. And then eventually now has become, this is almost like a staple now of new sets, right? The Mystical Archive, like
once a year, right? Where like, so because I was like thinking that, like, right, because Strixhaven had the Mystical Archive. This has the artifacts, but that's it for this year. The other ones are like alternate border stuff, but definitely the throwback sheet, the Mystical Archive sheet for Mystical Artifact sheet in this situation, like those have been some of my favorite sets of the last year because and kind of the same reason I like the cube format, right? Like I love that being brought back vibes. I actually think if I were to guess, Ixalan's going to be the one next year that has it.
Well, and there's just so many cool ways to do it, right? Like artifacts, that's a great theme. Mystical Archive, so fun. You could like any lands based set, you could throw in a land on the sheet so easily. And it could be anywhere from a Mutavault to a Mistvel Plains to a Shivan Gorge to like a really cool, rare, hard to find land that's really good. Like there's so much you can do with that just makes every single format feel like the pack has a little bit more depth.
The
And
reason I like them a lot more than the I'm gonna call them treasures, but the expeditions is because the expeditions had to kind of like lock themselves into being good lands, right? Like every single one of the expeditions, every one of the invocations had to be like top of the list, best land you could open because it's rare to find. And here you have to have some of those lands on the sheet, right? You want to have fetch lands on the sheet or whatever, but most of them can be random cool stuff that's fun to play with, that's iconic, but doesn't need to be super expensive. I think honestly, I mean, this is a fun fact about original Ixalan, which we'll talk about Ixalan more, but all of the flip cards, the fact that they had a cool map looking artwork on the back of them for the lands that they became, was because those were all artwork that was generated to be expeditions for that set. They're going to be lands that you found, that you can find, but they kind of realized they didn't have it. The invocations were unsuccessful because of the vibe, and they also felt like, oh, in the future we don't have enough themes to do this in every other set or this often. We don't have, there are not enough like ways we can go deep on here, and this wasn't successful with Amonkhet. Let's cut it. And so they became the flip lands. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lands exploration sheet kind of to play homage to that not happening this time around, because I think that's like, and I think you're right. I think you can do stuff like Mistveil Plains, or you can do stuff like the one that cycles for a land. Oh, I have the secret layer.
Do you know what Mistveil Plains is? You can when I said that card.
Yeah, you can put a card from the bottom of your deck on the bottom of your library.
I'm impressed,
it's a
guys.
plane,
Alex,
so you can fetch for it.
The slam dunk on that. While Alex is searching really fast,
No, I have it. Ash Barrens.
Oh yeah, card's great.
Command Beacon, Fabled Passage, Strip Mine.
Yeah, those are all great. I will. Okay, so we're going to talk about all the sets. We have some trivia to do, and we also have some shout outs to do. But before we get to them, I have told you I've just like been wanting to like open cards, and so I had this stack of foreign packs that you and I found in a box that I had bought at a convention like 4 years ago. I bought them all for pretty inexpensive, like $8 to $11 a pack, I think. And so I opened up the 7th edition ones, which was like I got nothing. They were useless, like absolutely garbage. Because the whole 7th edition thing is you're just hoping you open a foil of anything good because it's worth so much, but everything else is useless. So then I was like, I have these other like 5 or 6 foreign packs. I'm just going to open these all. I'm just going to open them and see if there's anything good in them. Cause like, we're never going to draft them. I was like, what am I going to do with these? I'm not going to sell them. And I just wanted to open stuff. So the bad luck I had on the 7th edition packs was like pretty much totally made up by the rest of the packs I opened.
Okay.
I opened a Torment, Chinese Torment pack. The top card, the uncommon, was a pack fresh Cabal Coffers. So Torment Cabal Coffers, because it's an uncommon.
Yeah.
In the original. So that's like $20 off the bat. Then the second uncommon was a Chainer's Edict, which I guess I didn't realize is worth like $8 or $9 now.
Okay.
So there's only like 4 uncommons in the entire set that are worth anything. And 2 of them were my top 2 uncommons. And then the first common was Cabal Ritual, which again, it's a $10 common because they haven't reprinted it in forever.
Sure.
So that was one pack of Torment. I got like, of the 7 cards in the set that are worth anything, like 3 of them were in one pack. Then I opened my 1 Rise of the Eldrazi Chinese pack. My rare was Training Grounds. Sick.
Nice.
It's like $32. My 1 Shadowmoor pack, my rare was Polluted Bonds. You know that card?
No.
It's like was like 20 some odd dollars. It's like it's a
Shadowmoor card. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, most of these sets aren't worth anything. So I was opening like the legitimate pulls in these. Polluted Bonds is an enchantment. It's black 3. Whenever a land comes into play under an opponent's control, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. It's just obviously a commander card.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was super fun opening those old packs. I got like a bunch of good stuff. And then, but I didn't touch any of the English language ones because we're going to draft those in Philly, which I'm excited to go to, by the way. Philly's going to be great.
All right, let's do some shout outs. For those who don't know, we are sponsored by multiple friends. First off, TCG Player. It's one of the best places you can buy Magic cards on the internet. If you click on our affiliate code down below, it's not even a code, it's a link. It'll just remember we sent you. That's, always appreciated. If you check out as well, altersleeves.com and use the code the MMcast at checking out, they send us love. And also, if you are a patron, you get exclusive access. This will be the last month. If you were a patron for the last 4 months, you get access to 4 copies of this Lightning Bolt altar sleeves. These are cool sleeves. They're all like, you get their inner sleeves. They go in a sleeve over the card then goes in another sleeve, and they get to modify the cards you play with the coolest artwork you could want. And this one's MMcast themed and super appreciated. And that's for free for anyone who's a patron, which costs money. But patrons comes with other stuff, including 20 minutes, this episode of bonus content. At the beginning of the episode, we talked about Glass Onion. We talked about having a child. We talked about traveling and going to see movies in movie theaters across the country. So make sure if you are a patron and you missed that, check that out. And if you're not a patron yet, now's the time. If you can please comment below. There's a project I'm going to work on. I don't know if we'll actually get to this, but if you guys do comment below with these things, any questions you have about the stuff we're talking about, anything you want us to maybe go over a little bit more, I kind of want to see if we can maybe start creating a type of Q&A type content, at least through on TikTok, if not here. So comments below on like further depth or questions you have for us, we'll try and answer directly on a video soon. So please do that while you're here.
And thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Also, all of the patrons, thank you. Thank you. That's all I was trying to say. All right. So the game works like this. I ask Alex a trivia question, or he asks me a trivia question. I'm not sure which we're going to do here, but there'll be some hemming and hawing. There'll be some trying to figure out what the answer to that trivia question is. And at the end of it, if you guys got it wrong, you've got to like this video, leave a comment below. If you're not already doing it, subscribe to the channel. That is how the game works. Alex, do you have a trivia question for me, or should I throw one at you?
I have one. Slowbad, famous one of the main characters of the original Mirrodin story, a goblin, has been previewed to be completed in the upcoming set Phyrexia, All Will Be One. In that, his head has and body has been attached to another well-known legendary creature's body. Do you know which creature that is?
Oh, geez. It's a creature?
It's a legendary creature.
Uh,
If you need me to, I will also you can ask for a lifeline for me to give you the full name of the card showing up in Phyrexia. All will be one. I'll even read you the flavor text.
okay, that's that because I know that Slowbad Goblin Tinker originally printed in Darksteel, I believe. Maybe Mirror. I think Darksteel. I know the card does,
The original one.
and yeah. I think it's the sacrifice another artifact for indestructible or something like that. It's a 1/2. I want to say. I think that if it's something to do with Mirrodin, it's probably some sort of. Is it like Mastercore? Maybe. No, it's the wrong set. No. Mastercore was brought back. Molten Tail Mastercore thing? The legendary, maybe? Give me the text.
Slowbad Iron Goblin, 2 red for a legendary creature, Phyrexian Goblin Artificer. You may tap, sacrifice an artifact, add an amount of red mana equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value. You may only spend that mana to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. They are 3/3. Once he fought to save Mirrodin, now he fights to remake it.
I mean, that feels like that's well, but here's the thing: because I thought Karn was a creature, then became a planeswalker. Feels like that's Karn,
It is
but
not.
I
It is.
don't.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Okay. It's Bosch Iron Golem.
Oh yeah, Bosch Iron, good old Bosch. Yeah, I should have gone down. I knew Karn was wrong.
So to follow that up, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now with Slowbad and Bosch. Technically seven legendary creatures that have showed up on a Mirrodin set in any format. In Commander Legend sets, and at any time there's only that number of characters that have not been completed yet. So like Glissa, Slowbad, Bosch Iron Golem, all completed. They give you another. Jor Kadeen, if you remember, has been confirmed to have not been completed as they've gotten a preview card from New Phyrexia. Can you name 3 of the other legendary creatures that have not been completed by the Phyrexians?
Zero chance on that one, Ghost Rider. That's a miss. It's a swing and a miss.
All right, we're not gonna. So I'm gonna name some, and you have a chance. Zabaz, the Glimmer Wasp, which is the 1 mana. That's a new one. So that one that not completed that we know of. Krark the Thumbless.
Oh yeah, Krark the Thumbless. That's a good one.
So he no thumbs, but maybe if he gets completed, all thumbs. Maybe Krark 100 thumbs. Too many thumbs.
Who's got 100 thumbs and wants to? Yeah, that's some good jokes there.
Yeah. Great jokes. Kemba Ka Regent.
Oh yeah, Kemba. I love me some Kemba.
Yep. Thrun the Last Troll. Raksha Golden Cub, but it is confirmed that like in the story of original Mirrodin, a lot of the people that were like stolen from their homes by the bad guy of that set were sent back. So Raksha is no longer on Mirrodin. So they're off being a Goldeen Cub somewhere else. And then the one I thought you might get is Malira.
Oh yeah, I love me some Malira. These are all great cards and great characters. All right, guys. I struck out on that one. If you knew the answer, the initial answer, good for you. Please like the video. If you didn't, you have to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would, please. It helps the channel a lot. Alex, I have a question for you. I thought of it while we were talking about this. How many cards, and you have to name them, have been printed that can grant infect to a creature that doesn't already have it?
Ooh, do I have to name them, or can I tell you what
you can describe them? I'll give that to you if you can get the number and get them all
so
right.
there's the overrun +1/+1 all creatures get infect for 2 green, 2 green. There's
boards or something.
The equipment that gives infect. Then if you unequip it, or if it gets unequipped, the creature dies. Grafted
exoskeleton.
Yeah. There is Phyresis, which is 1 in a black. Target the enchanted creature has infect. There's There's another enchantment that's black, I believe, that gives the creature infect and then -1/-1 every a -1/-1 counter at a
It's
time.
called Glistening Oil.
Yep. There is Tainted Strike, I believe. One black, just a black to give a creature infect instant or sorcery, and maybe a plus of some variety, maybe not. I forget if it has that. I think it's just infect actually.
I think it's +1/+1. In fact, I think.
Yeah, something like that. I get it mixed up also with the rebound Death Touch one.
Yeah,
They like
yeah,
look
yeah,
like
yeah.
the exact same card. And then how many did you say there were?
I said you have to name how many, and you have to name them. So you've so far named 5, and you've described them all of the 5.
There's not a creature that like taps to give infect or anything like that. There's not. Those are all the enchantments. I don't believe there's the technically there is the 1 mana artifact 1/1 that for 1 black you can give itself infect, that technically if it was in your graveyard and you had any of the creatures that let you get the activated abilities of creatures in your graveyard, you can use that effect to give themselves infect using that creature that's in your graveyard.
We're not gonna count that one.
We're not counting
That's
that one, okay? If exiled by XYZ creatures. I'm gonna. There's nothing in any of the weird set. There's no like Modern Horizons infect card that's been created. I don't think there's any like all creatures gain infect outside. I think that's it. I'm gonna go with 5, and those are the 5.
You were so close.
1.
I believe you missed. I think, and if I'm wrong on this, guys, I did this off memory. I think I'm right though. The one you missed is the blue enchantment, Corrupted Conscience.
Oh, I
You
did miss that
steal a
one.
creature and it gains infect. That's the. I think it's blue. I want to say it's blue 3 maybe, or blue 3.
It's 3 blue.
Yeah, 3 blue, right? And it's gain control of enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has infect.
Yep. That is the
So the
one.
answer, I believe, is 6, and that is the 6 cards. So if you got it all, you knew them all, congratulations, round of applause. That wraps up our trivia segment for the day. Be sure to follow us on TikTok. You guys, if you've missed any of the old episodes trivia, you can actually get a lot of them. We repost a lot of the old trivia segments on TikTok. That's at the MMcast podcast or the MMcast.
It's on the MMcast podcast on TikTok.
Cool. All right.
Wait, okay.
Let's get into
back
this week's episode.
Jumping into continue because what we're talking about the future and we're on New Phyrexia, so let's talk about it. So, of the characters I mentioned, the Zabiz, Krark, Malera, Kemba, Thrun. So there's not a lot of characters left that have not been completed, right? Like for the most part, they've all Glissa, all these legendary creatures done. Of those 5, who do you think's gonna get completed? Who do you think's surviving?
Well, but before I answer that question, this will be helpful for me, but maybe somebody who's listening to this is in the same boat as me. I don't really know, like, who these characters are in the context of this story. Can you give me, like, the cliff notes of, like, how this all works? The Phyrexians want to, like, infect and complete people. Who is this cast of characters? Where did they come from? Like, what's the deal?
So Phyrexians in general are Magic the Gathering's biggest bad guy. They're based on the Borg, which is a Star Trek villain. One of the most largest villains in Star Trek as well. They basically want to. They like kind of function in a pseudo zombie virus kind of way where they infect you with a techno virus that eventually convinces you to want to replace your body with as much biological, mechanical modifications and will reconstruct yourself to become a more completed version of yourself. And that's the word
that is beautiful and all that. Yeah.
And so it'll be like, you'll have multiple arms or you'll get like a cool laser eyeball or whatever. And it functions. There's mind control features. Once you are infected, you are now your motivation is to have Phyrexia succeed and to follow the teachings of Phyrexia. There's some religious zealotness-esque vibes to it as well, where it's like almost more of a religion once you're a part of Phyrexia than it is even like a mindset. The Borg was much more like hive mindy, where Phyrexia is a lot more like God King religious. kind of stuff. It's led by 5 Praetors. We've been seeing them for the last set. So you have Elishnorn, who's the leader. You have Urbrask, who's the rebellious teenage son, who kind of is like revolting against the Phyrexians, which gets into some of the Planeswalker conversations we're going to have in a second. Jin-Gitaxias, which is like the vizier of the like science. He's the studious one. He's like coming up. He's the one that figured out how to complete Planeswalkers. You have Shieldred, who's the black mana one. She's kind of the war leader. Like she was usurped. Like she was supposed to be in charge, and then Elishnorn was able to kind of like take over instead. She's the one that was like waging war on Dominaria. And then you have Vornaklux, who's like the green one, who's like the big hunter, angry, whatever, blah 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 blah. And they took over Mirrodin. So originally they were on Dominaria. They were Urza's biggest enemy. The whole the Brothers' War was about the Mishra kind of bringing the Phyrexians back. After they find old Thrawn technology, which is the origins of Phyrexia. Yawgmoth was their original leader. And through all of that, Urza eventually killed them, sacrificing himself. Whole thing, bunch of stuff blew up a bunch of times. And then that's what the Weatherlight Saga was about, fighting. And Karn has Urza's spark in him, and that's how he became a Planeswalker. He was a creature originally. Urza's spark is inside of Karn, and Karn is the legacy weapon, which was like the first attempt by Urza to blow up all the Phyrexians. But Karn made Mirrodin. Mirrodin is a plane created by Karn, and when he created it, he still had Phyrexian oil inside of him that Urza's spark was protecting him from, but was able to start infecting the plane. And then over the 1,000 of years, eventually it took over the whole plane, hence Phyrexia. And then the Praetors were born to be the leaders of the plane. Basically, if you've watched Hunter x Hunter, which Ben hasn't watched, they're like Miriam. They're like the ant king that eventually shows up in that show. They're basically that.
So who are the heroes? So you mentioned Slowbad and all those characters. That's like a team.
Slowbad and Glissa were heroes in the first Mirrodin set. First Mirrodin set had nothing to do with Phyrexia. It had to do with the Mirari, which was some ancient artifact who then became a character, and Karn created this like cool planet for him to play on. I was like, hey dude, you take over for a bit, and he ended up being evil, partially because he was corrupted by Phyrexian oil that we kind of didn't know that at the time, and he like teleported a bunch of creatures from all over the multiverse to live there. And then there is a whole story about that, and that's how Rakshasa Golden Club got teleported back, because the end of that story is a lot of the people that were teleported there, the first generation, were sent back to their home planes so they can see their families, but all their children stuck around. And so Glissa and Slowbad and Bosch were all main characters in that first set, right? The second time we came back is about when Phyrexia took over, and that's where like Azuri came from, and Glissa comes back, but she's completed. She's Glissa the traitor.
Green black now.
And at that point, Planeswalkers are the main characters, right? So the plot of the first Phyrexian set is Phyrexia's taking over a big war. Karn has basically been turned into the God King. He's been trapped by them and corrupted. He doesn't have a spark anymore. That spark's gone. Venser, Elsbeth, and Koth basically go on a mission to save Karn. And Tezzeret is kind of like on the sides being a bad guy, but he's like working with the Phyrexians, but he isn't like part of them. They eventually find Karn. The way they're able to do it is Malira, who's still around, is immune to all metal infection. So she's the first Mirran to ever be born without like metal augmentations that happen naturally. But she's also immune to Phyrexia. So they use her magic to like not be Phyrexianized. And then Venser teleports his heart that carries his spark into Karn to save Karn. Venser dies, Karn is resurrected.
Oh, right. Venser dies. Right. It's Karn liberated. That's
Karn liberated. And then that's where Karn liberated came from. And then Koth has basically been on Mirrodin. So some movie tropes that you'll appreciate. Koth is a combination between Ash from The Evil Dead and John Connor from Terminator. He's been like fighting this fight for 10 years, just like on his own, on the depths. We haven't seen him since. And then like everyone's like, oh, he's gonna be dead, he's not gonna make it. And he shows up and he's like, he does the Arnold Predator high five
Yeah, yeah,
slap with Karn or whatever, and is like, welcome back to the front
yeah.
lines. And so he's been leading the pack this whole time. He's really one of the heroes. Elsbeth was historically one of the heroes, but doesn't seem to be super involved as of now. We'll see what happens with March of the Machines. Leading up to this, a few planeswalkers have been completed. So Tamio was famously turned into a into a
A
Phyrexian,
Johnny, don't forget my boy, a Johnny.
and then a Johnny. And then we have 10 planeswalkers in Phyrexian. All will be one, which by the time this episode comes out, I don't think preview season has started yet. But the 10 planeswalkers, 5 of them will be completed. So the 10 are Jace, Kaido, Kaya, Koth, Luca, Nahiri, Nissa, Vraska, the Wanderer, and one other one that I was blocking with my head. Tyvar, the elf bro guy.
Oh, Tyvar's the elf, bro.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, yeah. And so who are the 5 that are going to be completed is a big question. There is a leak. It's been weeks since the leak happened. Do you want me to tell you the leak?
Please.
Okay, so if you've please flash editor a number saying what the time code is, the skip if you don't want to hear the leak, and Ben's response. So we know that Koth and Kaido have not been completed. It looks pretty much, there was leaks that showed that Jace, Vraska, and Nissa all get completed.
Jace gets completed. We get evil Jace.
Evil Jace is happening.
So that'll be like, you think that'll be a blue black Jace?
No,
blue
I think they're all going to be. Well, I don't know if they'll all be monocolor. The ones that we got previewed is Jace is mono blue, Nissa is mono green, and Vraska is mono black.
Is it a good Jace?
We haven't seen what their abilities are.
Okay.
It was like, it was a leak, right? Someone took a picture of all 3, and they're all the like ink oil raised oil special foils, so they're like hard to really read even what they do. Who knows? It might be.
I hate that anybody. I hate that anybody like leaks stuff. It like still bothers me that people do that. It's like, why? What's the why? Just why?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think we can not talk. But so okay, so we have these 10 characters that are all kind of like leading the charge to attack. Some of them have probably been completed before this. We know that there was a card on Magic Arena that showed Tyvar, Nahiri, Kaya, the Wanderer, and Vraska are all like the assault squad. They're going in to try and defeat Phyrexia and figure out what's going on. Plant the Silex, which is this like big bomb that they've been developing, because Karn has disappeared. There's a lot of Hunter x Hunter references in the set, actually. Well,
when one of our stories ends in Magic Story. By the way, guys, just if it's not clear, I pay zero mind to like the story whatsoever. I kind of pick up bits and pieces, but like I'm in the dark when it comes to like how a lot of this stuff works. And maybe you are too. I don't know. When one story ends, like when we get to the end of this, and like presumably, in theory, hopefully, the good folks win and beat the Phyrexians, and they don't all die. Do we then like? Obviously, sometimes there's a continuance of the story to like the next set or something. But often when it ends, we just like go to a new story, and it's like a different place in the multiverse, like a different place in the. We just leave that one behind for now.
It works kind of like the Avengers in the MCU, right? Like most sets are individual stories that have little pieces that build towards a greater story. What we're walking into is Endgame, right? Where War of the Spark was kind of the first Endgame. We're now going into Endgame 2. There's a few things that are important. One is this is the last of the 3 2010 villain setups. So in 2009, they did Shards of Alara that like set up Nicol Bolas as the next big villain.
Right.
Then they did Zendikar that set up the Eldrazi as one of the next 3 big villains. And then they did Scars of Mirrodin block, which set up the Phyrexian's Return as one of the next 3 big villains. Right. So they had those 3 big sets all at once that kind of set up the next 15 years of story content. Something we do know. So we're out. So once those are done, there's like a few set up. There's the Raven Man has been set up as a possible villain. There's a lot of singular plane villains, right? Like Azor's on Ixalan. Oko's out there doing stuff. Ashiok's out there doing stuff. We don't know who's going to be completed and be a part of the Phyrexians versus not.
None of those villains that you just named feel anywhere near as like menacing, big, or cool as the ones that they set up, right? All the ones that those three you just talked about, all there's like, yeah, the Eldrazi seems super evil. The Nicol Bolas is obviously like massively evil, and like the idea of like Borg is like really very evil. So
I did like a TikTok series on this actually, like talking about what villains could be the next big villains. There's some stuff, right? Like Nahiri, if she's not completed, could be like she sicked Emrakul on an entire plane. And the last time we saw her, she was on Zendikar trying to resurrect like what amounts to the core empire, like giant sky star destroyers that they commanded to dominate Zendikar. But here's two pieces of information. One, Wizards of the Morrow on his blog said that there is a big change happening with March of the Machines to how Magic functions, both mechanical and story. And this is what I think it is. I think they are okay. So a small piece that I forgot to tell you on Kaldheim, which is the first time we saw one of the Praetors, Vornaclux showed up and he stole sap from the World Tree. That's the big tree that connect, because Kaldheim is like 9 planes, kind of how like in Thor there's like the 9 realms or whatever.
Sure.
There's like there's the one with the snow giants and there's the one with the elves and all the so there's a tree that connects it that allows you to like kind of create permanent planar travel that hasn't been possible before. The Phyrexians stole that, and then there's a source book that shows that that's their plan. They're growing this massive tree to connect all of the planes to each other, and I think that
they want to Phyrexianize and complete the whole world,
all of the worlds, right? Every plane that we've ever been to. And we have splash art for the later set, March of the Machines, that has Chandra, Borigamos, Dina, Baral, Essica, the blue dragon from Kamigawa, all together. And other than Chandra, all of those are not planeswalkers. So they, up to this point, have not been able to be near each other, right? So the Phyrexians are connecting the planes. We know that. We also know how they're doing it because there was an Amazon book that came out by Jay and Ellie. Recommend buying it. Jay's great. But I think that's permanent. I think that's the big change. I think the Gatewatch becomes the TSA of the planes, and now all of these planes are connected to each other. So characters through difficulty, right? It's not just like anyone can go anywhere, but like kind of like going back to the Weatherlight Saga days where characters and like Borigamos can become a main character that's in 3 sets in a row instead of us only being able to follow planeswalkers.
And I see what you're saying. So
sorry.
Mechanically and story-wise, they'd be setting up a situation where now the backwards compatibility of the multiverse means that you can bring Tobey Maguire into the new thing, or you can have like you can use whoever you want in the moment that you want, and it's just awesome.
And this is so that's like a safe bet. Here's my tinfoil hat theory. Planeswalkers are problematic. Just maybe a hot take. They have this problem. They have 3 problems. One, as a mechanic from a funness perspective, they are either unfun and good or not, or fun and bad, right? Where like, if you think of all of the best planeswalkers of all time, when they've been best in formats like Standard, they're relatively hated, right? Jace the Mind Sculptor, Liliana the Veil, Oko.
Teferi.
These are not like fan favorite moments of Standard. People love them in hindsight because people love powerful cards, and there is a grindiness that people like in Magic, but they're a relatively disliked card type. They make backwards compatibility for some cards like Lightning Bolt complicated. And so you have a weird point where like these characters are the main characters. These are the characters that Magic is trying to tell a story on. They're trying to build brands around them so they can sell those brands to movie studios. So they make a TV show and a movie about these characters so that those characters can be used to advertise their sets. That's why these big stories happen, right? So, and on top of that, the most played format in Magic, Commander.
Yep.
You can't use planeswalkers as the character that you're playing as when you play that format. And as a person who has tried making that work, I have a Nahiri deck, I have a Tamio deck, I have a Chandra deck. Hopefully all 3 of them, not all 3 of them get completed. There is reasons why they shouldn't be commanders. They create a grindy play style. They're not the most fun in that format. They don't really work. So my tin hat foil theory is that Wizards is making a move to greatly reduce the inclusion of planeswalkers as the center of Magic story. if not getting rid of the card type entirely.
No, that would be getting rid of the card type would be wild. That would be such a nuts thing to do because
I think that is true, but I think they move to like sagas. I think they move to like maybe a planeswalker shows up once in a while and not every set has 3.
do you like sagas?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Like you like them or you love them? You think they're phenomenal or you think they're just
them.
okay?
I like the spins on them more than the originals. Like I like the
Creature
choose
flip
when you
ones?
start ones a lot from Dominaria United. It's probably the best thing from Dominaria United. And then I don't hate the ones that like flipping the creatures.
I'm okay with them. I've noticed myself. We've talked about this on here before, right? And guys, I know we just did like a giant left turn because I asked Alex to tell me the entire story of that. But we will get to the next. I know you. I've learned this with you. You're never going to half-ass it. You're always going to give it your all when I ask a question like that, which I appreciate about you.
You asked for
I just
what's
learned.
the entire background to the largest story Magic has ever told.
In my mind, asking that question, foolish. I know. I learned something. I was going to be like, "How does Phyrexia work?" And you were going to be like, "Oh, it's like some sort of like infectious Borgs type thing." And there's like about 8 heroes that are fighting against it. I named a bunch of them, and that's like basically what I figured you were going to say. But we all learned something here today because I could not have told you any of what Alex just told me, and now I know way more.
Now you can.
Now I can. But as far as planeswalkers go, and why I think it would be problematic or I guess like hard to get rid of them. There's been such a focus. Oh,
sorry, just to clarify, that's the extreme part of my take. I think they'll reduce them, and legendary creatures will become a much central focus of the story going forward. So like we'll follow Joyruth for a few sets, and maybe planeswalkers will be involved. All right, sorry, keep going.
I don't disagree with you that I think the planeswalker grindy style is kind of bad. Like I think that some are great. I think some of the best designed ones exist between 3 and 4 mana, and they're really fun cards. I think the intrinsically powerful ones tend to be not very fun to play against. There's always this inevitability feeling when they come down, which is like, deal with this immediately or you just die. Like you just lose the game if you don't handle this right away. But I also think there's been such a shift in design over the last 5 or 6 years. There's so many more ways to handle than there used to be. Like there's been such a huge focus on creating cards like that, whether they're 1 mana, 2 mana. Like there's just a lot of things that exist that are supposed to stop them.
How many 1 mana ways to kill a planeswalker?
I mean, there's not a huge number, but they do exist. Like there's obviously lots of spells that are like damage to a creature or planeswalker, and it's a higher rate of damage for 1, which is something that like didn't used to happen as much. There's like enchant target creature or planeswalker, it loses abilities. There's some cards like that. There's like even cards like Hex Parasite that just are out there that you can play that are fine. That like I'm not saying look 1 CMC to deal with a planeswalker, considering the average cost of planeswalkers created in Magic's history are like 3.7 or something. 1 is too cheap. They aren't going to make like a sweet mythic type that answerable, but there are lots of cards like D-Spark or like the double black thing, or the not Dreadbore, the other one, or the Angrath's Rampage, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. There's lots and lots and lots of things that they've introduced over the last several years that have changed the math at least a little bit. So it's hard for me to believe they would just like reverse that. But I was going to say before,
planeswalkers don't go away, right? They all the ones that have been printed exist still. They don't retcon them out of the game. But I think this is the hard part, right? I don't think there's any of the stories they set up that they can keep telling without planeswalkers being a central focus, right? They've set Liliana up to have a really cool story arc going forward. They set up the Kenrith twins to be main characters moving forward. Garrick has never had his chance to shine to be the main character of Magic. Let's make Garrick the Chewbacca we all want him to be. Oko, when we talked about villains in the future, like Oko is a really interesting one and has a massive power level PR boost that for the game. And if they get rid of planeswalkers, if they reduce how many planeswalkers are around, how do you tell stories centered around those characters that are set up to be told? But if planeswalkers, the card type is changing or going away or not being used, and those characters or all like I think it could be a no more mutant situation, right? Or like a de-sparking for many people, where a lot of these characters become creatures moving forward, and there are still like a few rare planeswalkers, but they're like the few and far in between, right? Like Garruk is
That's a
maybe
cool
still a
idea.
planeswalker.
That's a cool idea. The thing I was going to sort of finish my statement
Yeah,
about that,
sorry.
just because I know I started talking about sagas, was that basically the big thing I remember starting to notice, and we talked about this like a lot over the last year, but I remember starting to notice somewhere 3-ish years ago, 3-4 years ago, the amount of text and like double face cards that I felt like were getting introduced started to make my ability to read and evaluate cards quickly like harder. Like my
Mhm.
head hurt more trying to like put it all, and especially when you're drafting, you just start to ignore cards because it's like, this card's never good, I don't want to read it, I don't even really exactly know what it does. That whole phenomenon. The difference between a saga that has 3 lines of text and then a backside, which is a good card, like a lot of them are powerful, and a planeswalker is that when I look at a planeswalker in a limited format or even like in a pack, when I open it, I'm always like, okay, this is exciting. It's a character, it's a mythic rare. This should be good. If I take this in limited, it should be the thing that'll win the game for me. If I open this in a pack, I should be able to play this in my standard deck. I have more motivation to read that card completely than I do to read a saga. And I do feel like sagas, especially the double-sided ones, feel a bit more like the Kaldheim creatures that were like, there's so much going on here. It's hard for me to track this quickly. So in limited,
I
I just
think,
kind of ignore them.
yeah, I think like in reality, the double-sided ones I don't love as much as I like the choose ahead ones. I think part of the planeswalker benefit is you can almost always ignore the last ability.
Yeah,
Right.
agreed.
The amount of times I will eventually read the last ability when I'm like, oh, this is in play. Oh, what is this? Oh, cool. I'm like, that's how I'm going to win when I build up to this. Right. It's like 2 abilities, unless it's one of the rare 4 ability ones, is all I need to read. Whereas Saga, you have to know all 3 abilities before you play it. Right. Like, because it will get to that last one. It's inevitable, and you don't have a choice. It'll just happen in 3 turns. So I agree that there's like, and then to your point, the fact that sagas show up at common and uncommon, I mean, there's a ton that you have to read, and some of them are like, oh, this is good. I get a 0/4 wall, I gain 2 life, and I get a plane. So this draws me a land. It smooths out my land drops. It protects me like a wall of omens, and I stabilize with some life gain. That's good.
There's like
Versus like, oh, this gives +1/+1 to a creature 3 times and makes a 1/1 token. I'm never gonna play that.
there's also like when you just compare, you cannot change this easily because Magic design philosophy has to change because the basic functions of each color can't just be repeated over and over again. They did a lot of that over the years, and like we get tired of seeing the same type of card or the same card over and over again. But I will point back to a card like Yavimaya Elder, which is obviously just like a classic Urza's Destiny. I think it was an uncommon. It was reprinted in one of the Horizon sets, but it's like green, green, 1 for a 2/1. When Yavimaya Elder dies, you may search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and you can pay 2 and sacrifice it to draw a card. It's quite a bit of text on an uncommon, especially through the old days. It has 2 abilities. There are 2 distinctly appealing abilities because one of them gets you 2 lands, the other one draws you a card. It can sacrifice itself. Like, there's a lot going on that card, but it's a lot going on that's very easy to track. When you read it, you're like, oh, there are two sections of text on this card. It's probably good when I play it most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's sort of the difference between like Magic design that I think works really easily for my brain and Magic design that's trying to get so clever to justify its existence. So for me, sagas, especially the ones that common and uncommon, they feel a bit more like the I can't be bothered. And I mean, again, this is so stupid. Like, I literally played Highlander with our buddy Eric the other night, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this card I realized it's really good. I see them playing it in Legacy. When you do this, you enter the dungeon." And I was like, "Where's the dungeon card?" He's like, "Oh, I don't have it. Just like look it up online really fast." And I was like, "Okay, let me like Google this on my phone, I guess." And then I like read it, and then I closed my phone, and then like he played the card later, and I was like, I can't remember what it does again. And I like was trying to, I was just like, this is insane. Like that you can't make cards that require you to have access to information that's nowhere near the card. That's not simple information; it's complicated information. It makes the card itself invalid. Like the card doesn't have the dungeon on the back of it. So I do feel like when I think about Magic's greatest strengths and it's maybe its biggest misses the last few years, that's the type of stuff that I'm like, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. And so I haven't found Planeswalkers to be that for me overall. I've still found them to be pretty fun, even the ones that are problematic. But what you're saying does make sense to me, that, the line is really very, very thin as far as a great one and a very average one.
Yeah, I think and part of it is just like it's hard not to keep track. It's hard to, sorry, not even close to keeping track. It's hard to design. Think of how many, like, think of over the last couple of years, especially since War of the Spark, the amount of forgettable Planeswalker cards.
Yeah, very much so.
Now there is the ones that weren't forgettable are the ones that are too powerful, or the ones that were like breaking the mold, did something different. Nico Eris, where they're able to, um, X's in their converted mana cost, or they have a static ability of some variety that's interesting. Like, but for the most part, they've kind of been whatever. I think it'll be really interesting to see what they do. So that does bring us to the next set, right? So we have Phyrexia. This is going to be the downbeat, by the way. There's got 5 characters are dying. This first set is going to be the loss, the darkest part of the story. We're setting off on bad vibes.
This is Empire Strikes Back, or
yeah, it's Empire Strikes Back. It's Infinity War, right? This is the snap. The snap is happening in this set. Dominaria United into this, and with Brothers War has kind of been the lead up to the snap. Then we go to March of the Machine, and this is going to be the war set. This is the big one. This is when everything comes to a head. All of the answers will answer. We'll see the Phyrexians fight the heroes. I'm guessing some other characters die forever here. We're going to get some big moments here. This is the big one. We don't know who's in it. We don't know what's in it. If I were to guess, Elspeth is a main character in it.
Okay, gotcha.
Would be my main shot call. That's and maybe Tezzeret and Karn are involved somehow, but I don't even. But what I do think is I think we're going to get a lot of characters from a lot of planes. Partially, like, as I said, on Phyrexia, there's not that many legendary creatures or even named characters that aren't planeswalkers that aren't completed already, right? They're not already turned into bad guys. So that also means there's not a lot of characters that turn into bad guys. So I think we're going to planes beyond. This is when all the planes get connected. They start invading. We'll get a bunch of character deaths from other planes that we like, right? We'll get like, I don't know, what's your favorite plane, Ben?
I don't know. Innistrad's great.
Cool. Name a legendary creature from Innistrad you like.
Olivia Voldaren.
Yeah, we'll get a complete Olivia Voldaren, right? That'd be dope, right? Yeah. Like these are the type of images we could get these type of character moments in that set. That's all we know. The next one is March of the Machines. That's the one that we have the Aftermath, which is an interesting 5th set in the standard roster for a year. I don't think I can think of many times there have been 5 sets in a single year for standard.
So the Aftermath is supposed to be like the cleanup. This is the like epilogue, sort of.
Exactly. It's literally that. It's literally the epilogue. It'll be the ending, what happens next, maybe the ramifications. And so I think in March of the Machine, that's where the ending, the war will happen. The Elishnorn will be murdered, blah 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 blah, or defeated, blah blah blah. We'll find out who the mustache twirling character that's going to be like the setup for the next time the Phyrexians come back in the Aftermath, right? But then the Aftermath is the setup of what I mentioned, where it's like, oh, the worlds are now connected forever. We now live in a world where the Phyrexians have been defeated. They're trying to clean up all of the mess they made, but now anyone can go anywhere. Planeswalkers, maybe to kill the Phyrexians, that Planeswalkers had to sacrifice their sparks or whatever, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, so you have like that you mentioned in March of the Machine, like you're going to have all the big fight with like, Elspeth coming back. In a story point like that, you have to have some of the most famous, beloved characters, right? It's an endgame. You had to have the big 3. All the supporting characters are great, but it was going to be the big 3 versus Thanos. You needed that. That was like a big selling point of watching it. So it's like with March of the Machine, who are those characters that as Magic fans we like need to see be heroic and or die? Like that's, I guess, Dahlia's big. Yeah, I mean, Elspeth made sense to me. That's a legacy character who's been around for a long time.
I think we're going to see stuff like Quantorius or other I think the Strixhaven class members were extraordinarily popular. I think we might see some of the new Capenna mob bosses that we didn't get to see do anything. I think there's a lot of different characters that we're gonna get, like a significant quantity of characters that you recognize and know that, like, I mean, in the artwork I mentioned with Baral, and like we've seen some of them already, right?
So the aftermath though is not that's not a dramatic story point. That's a wrap up. Things have happened. Like characters are
Well,
moving on or having sex, whatever. Go ahead.
I think the point with the aftermath. So we know for sure if my tinfoil great, something big is happening. Morrow has said there is a massive change happening to Magic due to the Phyrexian saga ending that is going to both mechanically change stuff about how Magic functions, as well as this, and it's going to have story. It's going to be based on story ramifications, right? The story is going to represent that happening. That's, I think, what Aftermath is about, whatever that is. I think bare level, it's that the planes are connected and now characters can travel from plane to plane, and they're going to represent that somehow. And I think at the top end, it could be something like Planeswalkers work differently now, or they don't exist anymore, or we're not going to print them anymore, blah, to yada yada yada. Right? I think there's a range. It's going to be a time spiral like event, is I guess the point, right? Because in time spiral, that's when the mending happened. That's when, before that, Planeswalkers were gods that you couldn't tell stories about because, like, Karn literally made a plane because he thought about it.
Right.
And on top of that, any character could travel to plane to plane. The mending made it so characters couldn't travel to planes. Planeswalkers then became like humans that had teleportation and a little bit of extra magic. And that's kind of what that was. And I think we might be going back kind of to even an additional level of Planeswalkers having less abilities.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, what you're talking about, like a major change, whether it is, effect on the way Planeswalkers work, or if it's just the ability to have all of these old characters from different stories come back when we want them, but they can come back as creatures. That's like one point you make here that I do think is really interesting. Planeswalker as a type, and then selling important characters to us as Planeswalkers means that very often I'm only getting a few major characters in a story, and they have to have significant cards. Whereas, like, growing up when I was playing Magic in the old days, and back in my day, I liked having legendary creatures. Like, I was okay with that. That was a cool way to represent, the Weatherlight crew, or anybody for that matter. It didn't like the character being represented as a legendary creature was fine. There was no issue with that. And what you talked about with Commander being the most popular format, it's almost like more of an incentive for them to focus on these characters. Be like, imagine if Jace was a creature, not like mono blue, flip Jace, but like imagine that like there was just a really good like 3 or 4 mana Jace creature that you could play. Like that was really fun.
There's an argument that Chandra is the main character of Magic, right? There's a lot of, like, she has the most random cards with her name on it that isn't like Urza or whatever. She has a lot more printings than Jay. She's been the center of the story a lot more often. She's featured in a lot more of the marketing for Magic. She's the face of Spellslingers, which is the app game version of it. The only way for you to play Chandra as the face card of your commander deck, the most played version of Magic, is to play with the tap creature one that is pretty bad.
Origins that flips and like does 2 damage at a time or something.
Yeah, like you untap, you do 1 damage, and then you untap it, and then if you cast a red spell, and then you flip it, and it does 2 damage as a Planeswalker on the other side, right? Like a relative. That's like the main character of Magic is that card.
I've wanted to make that card work so many times.
I mean,
I do love Chandra.
I did a charity stream during COVID with Chase from Mana Curves and a few other people, and we all had built Chandra decks. They all have Chandra decks built around that. I used the Chandra Acolyte of Flame, which is the Planeswalker one, because I don't care about the rules, but they were all, and their decks were really good. It was really cool. So you can build that commander deck.
Oh, you played the 3 mana one, the uncommon? Or no, it's a rare.
I played the rare one, the one that gives a +1/+1 counter, or a plus. It zeros to give all red Planeswalkers an additional loyalty, or make 2/1/1s, or
Flash
-2 is a Snapcaster Mage.
I love that spell. That's like one of my favorite Magic cards. It's like such a cool. I think that's such a cool designed Magic card. Like it's a really, really perfectly cost, like not too powerful. I love that it costs 3. It's really fun. So that's interesting. I think it's a great direction, and I like your theory. I like your tinfoil hat, sir. We'll see how correct you end up being.
So the next set, and this is exceptionally important for this podcast, Universes Beyond Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, Fall 2023, Modern Horizons 3.
Geez, this is in the next year? We're getting Horizons 3 next year?
Well, we're getting the Lord of the Rings set, which is printing directly into Modern.
Sorry. You called it Modern Horizons 3. I thought you were saying an additional set was Modern Horizons 3. I
No,
got what
no,
you're
no.
saying.
We are getting the Lord of the Rings set. That Lord of the Rings
Yes.
set is a draftable format that will function as Modern Horizons 3.
Yes. That much
is showing up.
Okay, so we've heard about this set. My first question before we get into anything about what we think is going to be in the set, Smeagol, whatever, all the characters, we have talked at length about Modern Horizons being a bit of a contentious move. Like, printed a lot of really powerful cards, has kind of turned Modern on its head. Do you think this is going to have just the same effect, same power level? Like, what's your gut feeling?
No.
Okay.
So there are two parts to this puzzle, right? Well, okay, there's three. One, as we saw with the Dungeons and Dragons sets, right? Wizards is aware of power level, right? When they print cards, they're aware of power level. They understand that when they print something that's powerful or they reprint a card that's powerful, that it's going to sell packs. So when they design cards, their intent is for there to be a few, if not a good amount, of decently powerful, rare cards that are powerful enough to sell packs. Often you'll see when they have a little bit less faith in a set's themes, they'll include specifically powerful reprints to kind of encourage people to be excited by that. That's why fetch lands were in Zendikar. That's also why Zendikar did weird gimmick stuff like full art lands and had the set change directions by the time we got to the third one because they were worried that lands matter as a vibe wasn't a deep enough idea. Lord of the Rings doesn't need that. You have a Lord of the Rings set. So you're now selling to a market that's much larger. You have a lot of people that will buy it because they like Magic the Gathering and they like Lord of the Rings, or they just like Lord of the Rings and they're willing to try Magic the Gathering to play Lord of the Rings, right? You pay for a license as theoretically a marketing piece to whatever you made. So they don't need it to be as pushed. It's one of the reasons I think Baldur's Gate was relatively considered unpowerful, is because for Commander, you don't need to print super powerful cards in this because the set is going to sell better just inherently from the brand that it's built around. I do think the grain of salt there is the Warhammer 40K decks all have really powerful cards in them that are really good.
Super
so
powerful.
That is the other version of an example. Does mean that I think there's going to be cool stuff. So I don't know. I was before Warhammer 40K, I was leaning towards that it was actually going to be a pretty powered down set. Like it was going to be a standard level power level.
With Lord of the Rings, just like the lineage of that franchise, movies, books, whatever. I know you're a fan. We've talked about it a lot. Are there any particular cards or characters that you are like so hyped for?
Not really.
No?
So I really like Lord of the Rings, but I definitely think it's not of my fandoms the most thing I've have that large of a commitment to. I hope Soul. Wow, this is the problem, right? There's no, because it's a Modern Horizon set. Like I think we're gonna miss out on the opportunity of like the one ring to rule them all as like a Soul Ring version of that, right?
Because they can't print Soul Ring into Modern.
Now they did for the Warhammer decks. They did come out with the Warhammer Secret Layers for like cards they didn't want to include in it. So I can see that happening with the Lord of the Rings set.
Sure.
So we'll see. Like I think they're just going to do all the characters. Like I think they're going to have Bilbo. They're going to have Frodo. They're going to have Elrond. They're going to have I think like all of the main Smeagol you
Legolas
mentioned.
probably will be a good card. I would hope Legolas is efficiently costed. I would hope Legolas is like a 2-drop.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Legolas will be a 3-drop. I would love to see what they do for Boromir. I will be upset if Boromir isn't good. I hope that Boromir is awesome. He is my favorite character in all Lord of the Rings. Obviously, Gandalf will be awesome. Probably Gollum will probably be fun. A character that I think will be Galadriel probably will be a great character. I'll bet you that's a good card. Bet you Galadriel is like really powerful, like Galadriel all-knowing or something like that. That's all cool. I mean, I definitely think there could be an opportunity for some really, really fun equipment, Bilbo's mithril that he passes down to Frodo could be like a really good piece of equipment. I think that's cool. What's Gandalf's horse's name?
Shadowfax.
Yeah, Shadowfax could be sweet.
Why do I know that?
Yeah, I would have gotten there. Anyway,
there was a time where I was obsessed with
Lord of the Rings.
With Lord of the Rings. I will give you that.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's cool. I think obviously there's a lot of nostalgia for the set. My answer to my own question, as far as what do I think power level is going to be, I think they had to have designed this long ago enough that to make sweeping changes to like rip out the heart of the power would have been pretty hard to do. I think like the Modern Horizons 2 came out now last year, correct? Like we talked about this, I think it was 2021 sometime, like mid-year maybe. And we're talking about this coming out, basically 2 years from that. We know that the turnaround time on this stuff is about 2 years. We also know it's not that big of a design team, and there's a lot of sets. So my gut tells me this is going to be very powerful. I think it's probably going to be a little less powerful than 2, and my biggest reason being a lot of the stuff they're doing in this is going to be characters. It's going to be famous characters. And I think there was probably an instinct to make all of the characters really powerful because they're all kind of legendary amongst like fans. So I'm sure that there's like a few and they had to kind of power down a lot of the rest of them. That would be my guess. I don't think you're going to have a lot of weird B cards that are just like happen to be extremely good that aren't significant in some way. So I think there'll be less of them, but I do think there's going to at least be 6 to 10 like extremely good cards.
I bet we get like some weird common or like a few commons and uncommons that are just like better, like forever staples, like potatoes will be printed and it'll be like weirdly like 1 black for 2 black mana or something.
Right.
Ends up being busted for whatever reason accidentally. An offer you can't refuse style cards where they like come up with a cool mechanic for it. I think that it'll be interesting if taking off the tinfoil hat theory from before, if the planeswalkers that'll be in the set, like I think Gandalf is going to be a planeswalker. Though, like, okay, so this is the weird thing though, right? Like Gandalf being a planeswalker, or Saruman being a planeswalker, or Sauron being a planeswalker makes sense. But wouldn't it? It's weird that Gandalf would be not able to be a commander card, like your commander. Doesn't it feel like a miss to not print a legendary creature version of Gandalf?
And it's not going to be like Gandalf can be your commander like we've seen in commander sets
because
before.
It's modern. It's a modern printed set, right? It's going into modern, so it feels. I don't know how you handle that. You'd make him a legendary creature, so
yeah, maybe.
Do both, right? You do what they did for Brothers War, where like
Sauron will be a planeswalker. I'd bet $100 to anybody right now. There's no way Sauron's a creature. Sauron's definitely a planeswalker.
Sure.
There's probably the Sauron creature version, because what was Sauron's name as a human before he became Sauron? Wasn't like it like
it was in the show on Showtime that I didn't finish.
You'll probably have the character version, and then you'll also probably have the planeswalker version. You might even have Gandalf the Grey as a creature and Gandalf the White as a planeswalker. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case. Or maybe Gandalf the Grey flips into Gandalf the White and flips into a planeswalker, right? I can see that happening. So, but anyway, I mean, look, I do have my reservations about the IP driven sets. I'm excited. I love Lord of the Rings, like some of my favorite movies of all time. But there's also that part of me that's, I don't know. It's a little concerning, I think, that we've had so much of the IP driven stuff over the course of the last 18 months. If so much of Magic starts to become every year, we have a couple of these, and like it's just a lot to track, I guess.
We will have a couple of these every year, right? Because we're not going to talk about it too much because I believe it's a commander deck, so it's like the 40K thing. The 40K release of this year is going to be a Doctor Who release next year.
Right, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
So we'll see what that is. So the next now back to standard sets, continuing modern legal sets. Wilds of Eldraine, which is supposed to be a palette cleanser from the Phyrexian War, so it's probably going to be a little bit less heavy-handed in how depressing it is. I do think weirdly enough, if I were to pick like main characters that aren't really a part of the Phyrexian story, the last time we saw them was Eldraine. So that's Garruk, that's the Kenrith twins, that's Oko. So I do think it's interesting that we're going back here, which is like I think Oko I think my like best theory was that like once the planes are opened, Oko like do you know the Great Aurora? It's a
Yeah,
card,
the
but
green card.
it was like the main plot of so Shadowmoor to Lorwyn. Lorwyn becomes Shadowmoor. Like it's an alternate universe because the Great Aurora happens and everyone turns into like dark versions of themselves.
Wasn't that card from like Origins or something?
Yeah,
No.
because Nissa went to Lorwyn.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's about Lorwyn, right? That like Lorwyn turns into Shadowmoor during the Great Aurora. So Oko
Okay,
doing
got
that to everyone, like just making it a massive planar event, so we could get Evil Jace or like and then like Tezzeret would become like a hero, so you could do like the inverse of everyone. I thought was a cool idea, but I don't know. It'll be fun. It's gonna be more fit. It's gonna be Shrek 2, right? That's what Eldraine is. It's Shrek, the set. Garruk is Shrek. Like he's grumpy at the beginning because he's been cursed, and then a donkey or an elk shows up and he's like, "Oh, I guess I'll be friends with you," and then he becomes good.
They
And
probably
the
bring
elk
back
gets a kid.
Adventures, right? They were like they were super popular, right? Adventures?
The Avengers?
No, sorry. They probably bring back Adventure, the card type. It was
Oh yeah,
very popular.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The only reason I would think they wouldn't is that they were just in the Baldur's Gate set. Like they did Adventures
Right.
in that
That's
set,
right.
but I think they're a slam dunk to come back. I think those will come back. I think food will come back. I think it'll be bad. Well, so this is the thing that's interesting because it'll come up between this and the next set. So I think Eldraine is going to be massively underpowered, and I think that
Because
because Eldraine 1 was overpowered, right? Like think about like Zendikar 2, right? Battle for Zendikar, it was like a way less powerful version because they like made landfall way worse because they're like, oh, landfall was too good last time, we have to make it bad now, and then it was bad. Like I think the only playable landfall card from Battle for Zendikar is that the enchantment 2 blue when you
the
play a
retreat.
land on tap, Knight of the Reliquary, basically.
Yeah, the retreat, right?
Yeah,
The
retreat to
blue one.
Coralhelm.
Retreat. Yeah, that's the one.
And so like that's my guess for Eldraine. But the next set, we're going back to Ixalan. I think it'll be the reverse. I think Ixalan will be too good.
Okay.
Because when we went to Ixalan, in response to whatever sets that were too powerful before, they depowered it a lot, right? So like Ixalan, it was response to Kaladesh. So they like Ixalan was like there were no good cards. It was like some tribes, they didn't do anything. The best card was the blue enchantment that flipped into a land, Search for Azcanta, like which is good, but like doesn't even say play in Modern anymore, right? Like
No.
and wasn't really seeing play in Modern before Modern Horizons even came out. Now I think they're going to swing back. I think they're going to be like, you know what? Pirates are sick. Dinosaurs are sick. Vampires are super popular. And merfolk are super popular. Here are our four of our most popular underutilized the creature types. Let's go deep, and it'll be sick. I'm hyped. And it looks like it's going to be a little bit more like Indiana Jonesy, which I'm also excited for.
I'm always excited for more merfolk sets. I guess well, this is like probably an entire different episode, but it is an interesting thought. I'm not a big fan of the whole like worst movies of the year lists that people make. I always think it's kind of like a stupid it just feels like very like destructive of art. But there is a lot of humor with Magic's history and the good sets versus the bad sets. I would be curious someday to do a top 10 biggest misses of all time sets.
We could also do like just because next year is the 30th anniversary. We could do worst set, best set of every year.
That's, I mean, math. That'd be 60 sets. I was going to say, you just go top 10 biggest misses because there's a few that are obvious, like Homelands or something. But there's also some that are just like the first Ixalan. It's like it's a pretty big miss. You mentioned BFZ, Battle for Zendikar. Like that set was so bad. That's like, I was going through a stack of cards today that I came across. I can't remember why I was looking at it, but it was like a bunch of commons and uncommons from that set. I was like, God, I didn't even like the commons and uncommons for limited. I like hated this set.
You want to deep dive into sets. I was thinking just like we just come up with the list at a time and go over it. Yeah, okay. I'm down.
I'm just thinking top 10 because I'm curious what is the worst Magic set of all time? Like is like non-silver bordered sets. Like, it's obviously like so you're talking like
isn't it like not the dark
Fallen Empires?
Yeah, like one of
Fallen
those.
Empires,
Homelands, isn't it
Homelands.
Homelands? I don't think a set has been worse than Homelands.
I mean, that's the point of the episode, Alex. Don't cheat the listeners.
Fair. All right. So, which set of the sets I just mentioned are you most excited by? Or do you want to talk about Ixalan? I mean, that's we kind of gave it the least amount of time along with Eldraine. I think we know the least about those sets. Merfolk is already a tier 1 deck in Modern. I think Vampires is 2 steps away from being an actual playable creature type in Modern, which I think is going to be cool. Dinosaurs, like you brought this up. I was maybe the most excited of any other block ever for Ixalan when it came out. Dinosaurs versus Pirates sounds like the sickest stuff ever. And then it kind of was disappointed in power level. I'm excited to go back with them like swinging full hilt. I want a, you know, a pirate ship commander. I want like better, like cool stuff like that. I'm hyped.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it on here. I'm really excited for Pirates. I love Pirates. I was disappointed with the quality of the Pirates at last time. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think there's enough cool Pirates over the years that if you give me some nice support pieces, I think there could be a fun deck there. I think Vampires is always a step away, so I agree. This could be the thing that does it. Merfolk can't get that much better. Like what you can print in a standard set to make Merfolk good is you gave us you gave us literally another 2 CMC Lord last time, which isn't even good enough to see play. So if you're going to give us a Lord, it has to be better than that.
Last time we were on Ixalan, because I'm like, last time we
Yeah.
got a good Merfolk to a CMC Lord, it made the deck a tier at least 1.5 deck in the format.
Yeah. So, and that's because it had flash and like was so turbocharged. So, like, unless you're going to give me a Lord that's better than that at 2, 3 CMC Lords basically don't see play. Sveloon does, but Sveloon is like the steroid version. So, Merfolk feels like for a standard set, you'd have to work pretty hard to impact.
What about
that.
like
I
an
do think
island that enters the battlefield untapped, non-island, a blue mana source enters the battlefield untapped, some amount of mana, is a Merfolk creature, like an attack, like, is a creature land Merfolk land.
Oh, just like a blue Mutavault, basically.
Yeah, a Merfolk Mutavault.
I mean, that could certainly make the deck better. Mutavault is way more contentious in that deck list than it used to be.
Well, but partially because it doesn't tap for blue, right?
That's what I'm excuse me, yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. Mutavault is so much worse than it used to be because the deck is so powerful now that missing your drops or missing your curve because you have a colorless land is actually pretty damaging to the deck. So that could happen. I think talking about I mean, I think Eldraine and Ixalan are probably the 2 sets that it's a little bit of a wait and see thing. I think what you're saying is pretty accurate. I don't have that much to say about Ixalan really. Of the sets you did mention, the one that I'm the most excited about, it's probably one of the first 2. It's probably either March of the Machine or it's it's probably March of the Machine. Honestly, I'll bet you that's the set I'm most excited for. I'd say it's the Lord of the Rings set because it's modern level, power, whatever, and it's Lord of the Rings. But I don't know. There's a version that I have to it because it's like just that IP stuff. Just I'm a little less excited than I wish I was.
Yeah, I think as far as the Magic IP goes, like I think I'm most excited for this year in Magic, basically since like maybe ever. Every set, like the story that's completing is so sick. What they're accomplishing sounds really amazing. Is like the way that their writing team is running sounds like it's actually functioning in a way that it wasn't with War of the Spark. I loved War of the Spark, but I guess the last time I was this excited was Zendikar into Innistrad, right? Like Battle for Zendikar into Shadows over Innistrad was the last thing that felt like this. Because I do, as a person who wasn't playing Magic during original Ravnica, have like a little bit of a less Ravnica matters less to me than other places do, to be honest. And I think this is pretty hype. I'm super excited for this year by a lot.
Yeah, I think Magic's in an incredible place. We're back to in-person events again. We're back to like the full machine running. So, hopefully we'll get to make some great content, see some of you guys at events, and we get some really bombastic releases that change the format and give us a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So, I definitely am really looking forward to it.
Yep, super hyped. Now, everyone below, let us know below also which set you're most excited by. What do you think? What are some of your theories? What do you think is going to happen? As I mentioned before, we're gonna, if we get enough comments, we might try and make a little mini video on the channel, or at least on TikTok, going over some of your comments. So please write below. We'll definitely get featured in some way. And thank you so much. Make sure to check out the Patreon. Make sure to check out all of our sponsors. Make sure if you're at Magic Philly, let us know. We're gonna be there, jamming spells, hanging out, and having a good time. And we'll talk to all of you. Well, I will be off next week. Ben will be with Renee, who, if you follow us on social media or on TikTok, has been kicking ass running all of that. So he'll be on next week, and then I'll be back the following week where Ben will be off, and I'll be on with Rebel. So we'll have some awesome stuff coming up in the next 2 weeks. We'll talk to all of you then.
Bye, guys.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.